Recording in progress.
It's a mystery.
That's what's, and I would do that with all these islands that.
I'm going to call the June 8th Public Safety Committee meeting to order. Roll call, please, Chief.
Doug Bruner.
Here.
Randy Swingen. Candace Montag.
Here.
Lori Zander.
Here.
Kevin Engline is not present.
Okay, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Public comment. This is an opportunity for anyone to address the PSC on any issue. Please observe the time limit of 3 minutes. While the PSC encourages input from residents, it may not discuss or act on any issue that is not duly noticed on the agenda. Anyone want to make a public comment? You can note Kevin got here.
Yep.
Anyone online with the hand?
Nope.
Yep. Okay, next item on the agenda is approval of minutes from May 4th, 2021 PSC meeting. Do I have a motion? Motion Randy,
I'll second.
second Lori. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the minutes from May 4th signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say the same. Motion passes unanimously. Chairperson introductions. We're going to start off just with fire department and EMS giving a little intro. And we're going to start off with Travis Neeson. So Travis, you can just come up. You can bring your two buddies if you want. Either way you want.
All right. So,
Oh,
It's here, but we don't have anybody.
It
online.
actually catches this whole room, so you're fine.
we'll just kind of stay.
Yeah, that's
works.
right.
So I'm Travis Neeson. I'm with the Cross Plains Fire Department. I'm assistant chief there. Right with me, Adam Johnson, who just recently got promoted to a lieutenant, and Mike Schweitzer, who recently got promoted to also assistant chief. I myself been on the department for 19 years. It's great. It's a lot of fun. We're currently recruiting people, and that's kind of what we came to talk about. We cover about 45 square miles, village Cross Plains, town of Barry, town of Cross Plains. There is schooling involved. It sounds like a lot. We got hours here. Our training for entry level is 60 hours. For firefighter 1, which we require also, is 36 hours. There's also some hazmat class and a ICS classes too. The ICS classes are online. They're very short. It sounds like a lot, but in reality, it's really only one night a week. It's usually Tuesday, Wednesday night. Sometimes there's a Saturday thrown in there to hurry up and kind of speed up the process to get done with the class. So, like I said, it's not really that bad. If you're ever interested in recruiting, if you see a firefighter, we're on Facebook, Facebook us. We are currently working on our website right now, restructuring that, so that's down for the moment. But again, if you see a firefighter, contact us. We can get you an application or Facebook message. It is great. It's fun. We average about 100 to 125 calls a year. The calls are starting to go up a little bit just because of more people moving into the village, and obviously you're going to have a few more things going on. So I'm going to let Adam Johnson kind of take it. He's going to talk about his experience of being on the department and kind of what he went through and how it goes, just to let people know how it is fun.
Yeah. So I'm Adam Johnson. I've been on the department for it'll be close to 5 years here in a little bit. And just into that, just the education piece, it really isn't anything major. I mean, it's just part of the, I guess the benefit of being a part of the department is you get a lot of additional education that you department picks up the department in the county through MATC, does all of the training, posts all the trainings. And typically for the fire department, I think we require up to Fire 1 certification. So there's really 3, technically 4 classes to take. You can accomplish that over the course of somewhere around 2 years, typically is about how long it takes. But it's all just semester based, just like any other tech college. I did it all at night after work, and it works out nice. And then you can do as much or as little expeditional training as you want. Other than that, the past 4 years have certainly been interesting here in town. With one a couple of years ago and some of that activity, but for the most part, you never know what you're gonna come across. But the one thing for sure is that joining the department is you get to join a family. You get to meet a lot of new people. I know when I joined the department, we had just moved into town and we're new to the area, new to the state, and it was a way for me to get out and meet people and have a little fun, putting out fire in the meantime. Mike, you got anything? Don't you? Maybe they're on ahead. Yeah, there's signs everywhere.
Yeah,
So
so
signs everywhere. So can you hear anybody? Let us know.
Yep. And also, I mean, if anybody's ever interested in becoming, joining and be on the fire department, you're more than welcome to come down and see what we do on a drill night. Our drill nights are every second and fourth Thursday of the month. We've had people come down and just hang out with us and watch and see what we do. We're more than happy to do that. So, and that goes for anybody.
There's usually one of us hanging around the department most days at some point in time. So if you need to swing by, there's somebody there.
So, go ahead, Kevin.
Minimum age requirement?
Minimum age requirement is 18. So,
Any
and we do prefer right now be living in the fire district right now.
Any efforts in terms of trying to recruit recent grads?
We have not done that. Not even looked into that.
Okay.
So, something like that.
Got one, so
Yes.
going into a career in fire, so.
Send them down.
Going
Yeah.
into a career in fire is a great way.
Well, it's a good first step. Residents that are looking to get into it, because it's the experience that career departments look for.
Yeah, so we'll connect. Jay and I were just talking about it.
Well, I appreciate it very much, Travis, Mike, and Adam. Thank you. And one of the things the Public Safety Committee too, we're trying to engage a little more, so it's not just more of a police committee, but a public safety where we can include EMS and fire a little more in our meetings.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Next, we'll invite Erica to speak a little bit about the EMS program.
Hi, everyone. For those who don't know me, I'm Erica. I'm the EMS chief here at Cross Plains. I've been here for about 2.5 years. And I do apologize as soon as I'm done with this. I have to sneak out of the paramedic school right now, so I cut out of school to come here.
Thank you.
I also have 18 years of fire experience under my belt. Unfortunately, none of those are in Cross Plains because once I started this job, everyone's meetings and stuff on the same night, and this is my priority. Cross Plains EMS is an 8 EMT level service, or the level underneath paramedic. Everyone needs an EMT basic license initially to start, and then they can upgrade and go to more classes to either get 8 EMT or paramedic. The EMT basic class curriculum is now 184 hours long, and they are stretching that out to 2 semesters. And unlike fire, once you get your initial license, we do have continuing education. We have to meet certain requirements as put out by the state and the National Registry if people choose to keep that certification. The state upped it to every 3 years. So now every 3 years, at the 8 EMT level, we need 42 hours of continuing education, which we do offer through our in-house training as well as our virtual training through MEP and SSM, which is who our medical direction is under. We all are licensed technically underneath the doctor. They have to sign off on us and allow us to practice medicine on the, box rolling down the road here. This is not towards the end of my list, but we are also trying to recruit. We actually started getting in with Madison College. They're starting an EMR program. We did share that on Facebook. Juniors and seniors can get in and start doing that class, and our service does actually allow EMRs to run with us and act as part of the legal crew. So we're hoping with that, we start pulling some of those younger students to get at least the EMR level. And then if they're interested in it, we can continue their education and help them with that. We are finding it harder to recruit people to do this on a volunteer basis. It did, back in the day start as like, we're here for you, it's gonna be okay, we're gonna get you to the hospital. And now we're really seen as medical care providers and professionals, and we are expected to manage every single thing these patients can throw at us, and we need to do it appropriately and be on top of it. Just service specific, so far we're at 163 calls for the year. We have seen an uptick in traffic accidents and then also really sick patients. And this isn't COVID, but we're kind of still seeing the downfall from COVID because a lot of people were scared to go to the hospital. They couldn't get in for doctor's appointments. They couldn't get medications. So these chronic issues they had have now worsened, and now it's a bigger deal than, it could have been if they had been able to get in and seek appropriate medical care. We currently have 28 members. We have 3 full-time providers, 5 part-time providers, and then 20 volunteer providers. Just general COVID updates. I am really proud and I'm bragging about this because not one single one of our providers was diagnosed or had COVID in 2020. And over 90% of our providers elected to receive the COVID vaccine earlier this year. It was not made mandatory. When it was open to public safety, they all jumped on it. A bunch of them went and got it, and I'm very proud of that. Throughout 2020, we were able to help out our community partners by spraying buildings with a selectricide spray we were able to obtain, which was proven to kill COVID. We sprayed the library after elections, fire stations after our meetings, police station and vehicles, and then Village Hall. We were able to assist the assisted living facilities with obtaining PPE for the caretakers and residents. So when COVID started, the county asked that we share our PPE, and that way EMS could get reimbursed by the county instead of all these separate entities trying to contact the county and the state to get PPE. So we were kind of the facilitator with that. And then once things got smoothed out on these facilities, we were able to hook them up with the state request website. They were able to request PPE through there. The downside is we did have some significant overtime costs. Some volunteers were forced to not run with us due to work requirements. Or they were in the age group where COVID, could hit them more significantly, or they're responsible for taking care of elderly family members and didn't want a chance spreading anything. And then medical equipment, medications, and our supply budget doubled. The cost of everything skyrocketed. They changed the way we could buy certain things. We had to buy certain things in bulk because everyone was fighting for the same stuff. And it is stuff we'll be able to use. It's not going to be money lost, but it was just kind of an unexpected hit that we weren't prepared for. Right now, our staffing is stable, but I kind of describe it as a teeter-totter. Full-time staff has still been picking up extra shifts each week to keep us in service, but our ambulance has not been out of service due to lack of staffing in 18 months. So I'm very, very proud of that. With things coming back to normal, some goals we have for 2022, we're hoping to get more providers certified as CPR instructors. We did have a pretty good CPR program a couple of years ago. Some of our instructors left to go do other things, and now we only have 2 that have kept up with that certification. So we're hoping to revamp our CPR program and then just start expanding our general public education and outreach. This year we were able to teach and certify the 8th grade class at St. Francis last month. I did a virtual first aid presentation and discussion for members of, it's the Primetime Club Director Group, but I actually met with Lois from the State Big and Cross Plains, and we were the ones that kind of set that whole thing up for them. Because they're ready to start traveling again. Just wanted to cover health issues because everyone is over 50. So they just wanted to have a general knowledge of different health issues, how to help these people if they do have a diabetic emergency and things like that. We're hoping to get back into public education with the school age groups. We try to get out to the daycares and just some other groups and chat during EMS week and just show them the ambulance and kind of get them used to EMS. And then we're hoping to look into hosting an open house for EMS week next year. Is 20,
a full volunteer staff, or are you recruiting a couple more too?
So right now we're hoping for more volunteers. I have a feeling that a couple of my part-timers are gonna be dropping out here because we kind of share the same pool when it comes to LTs, and some of them just actually got their medic licenses and now are full-time in Wanakee. So Wanakee just upgraded to paramedic, so that's, they're able to run their license level there. So one of them is still kind of trying to pick up shifts when she can, but one is one shift so far. So if they were to quit, then I could hire a couple more part-timers, but it's only a balance plays out. But yeah, otherwise it would be volunteers for right now. We have lucked out the last like 3 or 4 that we've been able to recruit have come in fully certified, done with school, EMT basics. So it's just a quick turnaround getting them used to our ambulance, our protocols. But if they're coming in brand new, you will obviously still take them. But now with that new EMT course being 18 months, it's going to be well over a year before they're ready to actually be a crew member, which hurts us. You know, a lot of times you rely on medical students, and we're just starting to kind of get in that door, and we don't know if they're really going to be interested in doing it with how long this course is going to take now. So a lot of them only take that year gap, and they want to be doing something to get experience. So just taking it as it comes, but we're trying to figure it out. But yeah, we have been getting more referrals like with MATC and stuff. Just when classes are kind of finishing up, we make sure to hit it hard with recruitment posters. They were doing a career day type thing towards the end of class, so we were trying to get in with that. Obviously last year messed that up, but it's just to kind of, hey, we're here, like we have a really nice station and amenities, and we do training, and just trying to pull people our way. But it's very competitive, and being a slower service does kind of hurt us because the younger groups, they want the calls and they want the action, and we don't always get that. So
How many full-timers now?
3.
We don't want too much action for your services.
It's just, running on Lodi, Marshall, those are both 500 to 600 calls a year. Services, you're looking at like 2 a day essentially, and it doesn't seem that bad. And then you come here, and last month we were super busy. We had 45 calls for the month, which the 2 months before we were at like 20 and 21. So it's not that busy, but compared to the other months, and then the overall average, we're still on track for a normal call volume this year. But yeah, I was like, and it was a lot of my shifts. I just get my butt handed to me, because I'm one of the 3 full-timers and run a rotation. But now it's like we've gone 3 days with nothing. So you're just kind of like, what's the next one gonna come?
What is that average annually? Like
Like
300?
370, so about 1 a day.
Any other questions or comments for Erica? One of the things I thought for both groups too, it might be good for National Night Out. We coordinated maybe a little recruit or share some more information that night. So we'll have that be a future agenda item, and I'll reach out.
So you're looking for people to help with instruction?
Like CPR instructors.
What is
we
that?
used to hold
What is that
courses.
required now to be certified?
So you have to go through the actual instructor course for CPR certification, but then you have to teach with an already instructor for like 2 or 3 classes, and then you're allowed to go. But the ratio is like 1 instructor for 4 to 6 students, I think. So even for the 8th grade class, we had to pull 2 instructors because but yeah, but it's a nice thing just to get out in the community and help out with CPR refreshers and certifications, but it does take a lot of planning on the back
You
end
get
of it
a
for
member of
us.
EMS to help with the instruction.
No, not necessarily. Just kind of keeps you in the loop a bit more, but yeah, that's another thing. If people wanted to do CPR instruction, we could get a group big enough to do an instructor class. Like that might be, the college might be more willing to do that instead of us saying like, hey, we have free.
Okay.
So.
All right, thank you, Eric.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So the main topic and reason for the public forum was body worn cameras. I'm going to let Chief introduce the topic. We got a handout. Kevin, maybe help me pass these out. And as a public safety committee, we listened to a couple police chiefs at our last meeting, heard from staff, pretty comfortable with the program and the priority, and wanted to use this forum to try to get some more information out and answer questions. Go ahead, Chief.
Okay, so obviously this topic has been going on for a little bit of time. We've been discussing it for several months. I think almost immediately since I took over. And so we're doing research, we're asking questions. At our last meeting, just to recap, we had a couple police chiefs come down and give us their pros and cons. We talked to our technical department, the main person that does our technology, answered a lot of questions with regards to technology and cost. We're working on policies, making sure that that the standards are at a very high level. I think I've mentioned it a couple of times. We are working with Lexipol, which Lexipol is the gold standard of policy. Every policy that they write is vetted through attorneys specific for our state. It's a national organization, and a lot of agencies are going through it right now. Fitchburg just signed up to go through all their policies and make sure they're all up to date. So that is the stuff that we're covering. We created a timeline, which this falls in that timeline, that in June we would have a public forum, and then in July we would decide whether we need a second public forum depending on the information that we received, or do we finalize the body-worn camera policy and make a final decision and recommendation. You also heard from several members of my staff who are, and they're all in favor of it. I've talked to every one of them. The two that came just happened to be available, and it ended up being our most senior officer and our least senior person. And then I think Ben, who was on duty, also chimed in. They're all for it. They obviously know that there's some limitations with regards to the system. Technology sometimes fails, things can get knocked off, those kind of things. But we know that those things exist. Speaking to the community, in just about every conversation, I bring up body cams because we've tried to get it out to the community to get people to come to these meetings, not only to this public forum, but to all of our public safety committee meetings. We haven't been very successful. And the conversations that I'm having in the community are, most of them are, I thought you guys had that equipment already. I think it's most people think that we would carry some kind of recording, which we do. We have them in our squad cars. So I think that, you know, people just assume that we have those kind of things, kind of very similar in the lines of tasers and less than lethal and those kind of things that we worked on early on in my time here. So that's where we are. We want to hear from the community. We want to make sure that this is something that is vetted through the people that it will affect. We've heard several topics. Mike actually sent me an email with a lot of very good questions, which I got all the answers for those questions from our tech. So a lot of that can even be discussed here tonight. And then Jay also had, before that, followed up with a memo. And I think the resounding three things that keep popping up are privacy issues, making sure that our policies cover those privacy issues. When are we going to turn on the cameras? And we heard from chiefs that already said it's not a good idea to turn them on victims. And you know, although I look at it as a common sense thing, we have to make sure it's documented and our officers are not turning those things on, re-victimizing people. So we heard about those things. So having a really clean policy. Cost has also been a topic that has come up and up and up. And you guys heard from our tech last year that, or last meeting, that the cost would be about $15,000 for our server to be updated with all the redaction and 16 terabytes of space, which he found would be way more than enough for, and he deals with all of our technology now. So he knows what we're saving, what we're not doing, what, you know, how we're doing those things. He also works with other agencies, so that have body cams, so he has already that experience as well. One of them being Monona, which is much bigger than us, and they use that similar type of setup. They went with a more which he talked about at the last meeting. They went with a much more expensive option, which is a NOS system, which basically it gets full and then they buy another one, it gets full, those kind of things. We would be looking at 16 terabytes, which he predicts that based on our usage, based on our calls for service, would take 5 years to fill if we didn't delete a single thing, which we know that policies will dictate when those things come off and those kind of things. There's certain things that must remain on the server, but with our call volume, we would not be looking at adding anything or doing anything for 5 years plus. The other thing that he talked about with regards to technology was that 5 years, the server would be dated. So one of the good questions that Mike asked was, why are we going with a 16 gigabyte? Why not buy into a 24 gigabyte or a, even larger? They make them larger than that. Obviously, if we, Madison's and those kind of departments require a lot more space. Why not go with that? The chances of us filling 16 gigabytes of space is like almost impossible. That was kind of his statement. It would be very hard to fill it. It doesn't matter if you buy 24, 36, 48, in 5 years, you're still going to have to be looking at replacing the server. What he's saying is you have to look at server updates like you do a squad car. After so many miles and so much use, you have to update and replace and those kind of things. So he doesn't think that it would be beneficial for us to buy all that extra space. What he was saying is he would set up the system in a way that all of a sudden, let's say, for whatever reason, we do get to fill that space up, 16 gigabytes, and we're 4 years in and we still got a year left before we should be even looking at this, that he can then attach a NOS into the NOS system and add extra space for about $5,000, he said. And so that would give us a better, an extension to the life, if that were to happen, which he said, I just don't see it because places like Monona aren't seeing it. And so we don't have the call volume that a Monona has. So those have been kind of the main topics. I think cost and obviously privacy issues and the initial cost. So the initial cost is kind of a big deal because it's part of our okay, when are we going to get it? And then I think for Jay's point has been, okay, everybody needs something in every department. How soon do you really need this, or can this be something that can be worked into, a year from now, 2 years from now, as we kind of fix our budget and deal with budgets. So the initial cost, I just talked to Baycom to get the final numbers. We're looking at $5,000 for 3 cameras. We only want to have 3 cameras. I mean, some departments every officer gets a camera. And for us, it's always kind of been traditional to do whatever you do it for the squad. So they would be connected to the squad. So there's really no point in having 6 cameras. 3 cameras, 3 charging docking stations in the squad, and then 3 charging docking stations at the police department. So there's hidden costs associated with that, so that it's no different than right now. When we pull up to our bay, and like today, I had a pretty significant case. It took a couple hours of video for our squad. So when I pull up to the bay, it downloads it right away. There's no man hours. The squad car downloads it, and it doesn't take very long for that to download. Record requests are huge. They're almost every time we have any case that is significant or going to court or there's an attorney attached, the first thing they ask for is discovery. And the first discoverable thing they ask for is body cam footage. We always say we don't have that. And then they go for the squad car. Our administrative assistant takes care of that. So initially it was taking us a little bit of time because the server is very outdated. It's a 10-year-old server, which capital improvement already provided $10,000 to replace that server. I'm going to use my technology fund to update the server even better so it could equip all of this for the future. That's already in our budget. So that initial 15,000 will be covered with the capital improvement and my budget and technology. So in reality, if we really get to the nitty gritty of the cost, we will need $5,000 to get body cams because we will already have the server, the redaction software that's required. Everything will be in place, ready to go with this year's budget based on my capital improvement and 5,000 that I have in technology that I can use toward that. So that the cost that we're looking at is we don't have $5,000 for body cam. Okay. That also, those body cams at $5,000 also includes I think I priced it out for 3 years of warranty on the system itself. So if anything breaks, any part, it's covered. We can go up to 5. That increases it, I think, by $250 per. So it might be worth it just to get that extra 2-year coverage. So we may be looking at, instead of 5, maybe $6,000. The other hidden costs, obviously, I kind of alluded to that, would be the cost for the administrative assistant to burn that information onto disk or thumb drives or whatever, depending on what's being asked of us. Now with the DA's office, we're able to kind of cloud, kind of send it through the internet. That all works behind the scenes. It's not like she has to sit there and stare at it. She makes it work, and it does. Baycom just helped us set up the system. We don't have the server. We're still kind of working through some bugs. Right now, they have it set up where it was taking a little bit longer, but now with Baycom kind of gave us a way to circumvent that until we can get this new server up and running. So it doesn't take very long to download that stuff. Another good question that Mike brought up was redaction. So is redaction automatic? It's not automatic. Redaction, we have to set it up, how that's going to redact. So the software, so for instance, let's just say we're all here right now and Randy gets out of control and
I'm known to happen.
and we have an arrest, okay? And then people in the background are like, I don't want to be in that video. We literally will select the faces. The faces will pop up from everybody, and you select which ones are blurred out. It's that simple. And so all of a sudden, it's kind of like TV. You've probably seen it on TV. Some people you can see them, and other people are blurred out. It's just like that. The software will identify all the people in the room, and then you pick the faces that need to be redacted, and then it itself goes. And so if the video took an hour and that person kept coming in and out of the video, it's going to recognize that face and block it out. So that's what redaction does, and it's required. We have to have that, because let's say we run down the street chasing someone, we might catch a bunch of children in that video, so we have to have that. Privacy requires it. So that's a mouthful, but that's basically where we're at. And I'm sure there's going to be more questions. I'm really grateful that Jay and Mike have taken an initiative being on the board and taking the time to do this, because although most other agencies in Dane County have adopted this program, it's new for Cross Plains. And so I think we need to be really cautious of it. And that's all. That's what I have.
And I don't remember, if, I'm sure it was discussed last meeting, but how long are the videos available, or is that up to
Yes.
you all?
So there is state law that requires certain videos to be maintained for certain periods of time. And then there's even some loose language that says, if you think that this video might fall into a civil litigation, then we have to do everything we can to protect it. So those parameters are set beforehand. So right now, our system, our squad cars are set up in that similar fashion. So if it's a traffic stop, there's let's say, for sake of argument, 60 days, and then that could be deleted. The officers can log in and say, okay, this video I don't need. For instance, if every shift, I require that they turn on all the lights, check everything, make sure everything's working. The moment they hit those lights, it turns on a video. So they then can say, purge this. I still don't just purge it. I go and look and make sure there's nothing in there, those same parameters would be set up. So we would work with Baycom to set those things up based on policy, based on state law. And then of course, as monitoring it, there's a couple of things that we would be doing. One is monitoring the video, and then also monitoring the video, spot monitoring. There's no way, that's all I would do if I was just watching videos all day. But spot checking to make sure that, policies are being followed, those kind of things. So it'll dictate, the policies will dictate when those videos will stay. But like I said, and I think that's where JJ talked about, he said, even if you decided we're not going to follow state law. We're just going to keep everything. 16 terabytes of space based on what we used currently and our call volume, we have 5 years. That's using everything based on our call volume. Okay.
Okay,
Yeah, is it all right for us to speak?
Yes.
Okay. I want to apologize for not being at your May 4th meeting. It was our anniversary, and I don't think my wife wanted to be here for an hour and a half. So what I'm doing, my name is Jay Langfeld. I live at 3092 Creekside Way. I'm kind of here with 3 different hats on as a retired law enforcement officer, as a citizen of Cross Plains, and as a member of the village board. And I want to just spend some time going over the May 4th meeting, just reiterating some of the things that I thought were key. I listened to it the other day. And I think an important thing, while it's been mentioned numerous times that the majority of departments have cameras, I think it's important for you to know 70% or more of the population is not being policed with people with cameras. And that's the same thing with the number of officers. Madison does not have cameras. Dane County, because Dane County doesn't, you go in Black Earth, Mazo, Town of Middleton, Cambridge, Cottage Grove, they're all contracted through the county, so they don't have them. So still, the majority of people in Dane County are not policed with people, with officers with cameras. So I want to make sure you have, like, Cross Plains isn't missing out on what everybody else in Dane County has. The chief is correct. Most of the smaller jurisdictions do have it in Dane County, but because the larger ones are so much larger, the number of officers and the citizens they police. So that's an important thing. And then it's been brought up about Madison Police Department going to a pilot program in the North District. I called the executive captain today, and that is back into a committee. And she's telling me the committee is not in support of it. Plus, the mayor's looking to have police cut 5% of their budget, so it'll be very difficult. When I left Madison, the price tag for the video was 1.5 million. So I think it's going to be hard for the MPD to cut 5% of their budget and add 1.5 million. But you know, the chief and the department is certainly for it. The citizen committees throughout the last 5-6 years have not supported it. I think what should take note of the chief, I don't know, the chief of Shorewood, I thought he brought home the importance of policy. And you remember when I came, he brought up some of the same thing. That's going to be key, is how the cameras are going to be used and can we protect the privacy of citizens of Cross Plains. The open records, I'm going to disagree a little bit with him. You cannot ask somebody why they're making that request for open records. That is very clear in state statute. Everybody has a right to ask for whatever they want in open records. In the open records law, if you take a look at it, there's 4 or 5 exemptions where you can deny that request. Now, his technique of redacting is one that when I was the record keeper of Madison, I did all the time. You certainly can redact as much as you want, and it's much harder for to be sued and to lose on a redaction than it is in not releasing the record. So he was, if you heard at the end, he was very clear that he releases it, but he redacts a lot from it. That puts you in a much better position. When I say us, that means in this case, Shorewood, in our case, us, because when you get sued for under open record, if you lose, you have to pay the person's attorney fees. And Madison has paid huge bills in these lawsuits. So I just want to make sure that that is something, the redaction, as the chief says, is a very key part of this program. And then with the Mount Horeb chief, I think he brought up a very good point about the reliability of the technology. And he was mentioning the frustrations of officers when you have the technology. If it doesn't work or it's not available, it really kind of irritates you and stuff. But it also works against you in the sense that if something happens and you don't have video, that is now throws up, oh, what are you hiding? Why'd you get rid of it? So there's both sides of the technology you kind of have to look at. And then he also brought up the cost factor of the storage. And it sounds like I am not a computer one, so I'm gonna kind of listen to what our expert says, but I am gonna try to plan. I'm trying to get an open records request, and I'm just telling you this, so it's out in the open. I'm gonna do an open records request to the 911 center to see if I can get the data to show exactly how much time our officers spent on calls in 2020. All right, I'm gonna attempt to do that in Madison. We used to do it every year to decide where the beats were for our officers. So I'm gonna do an attempt to try to get that for us, and I'll definitely share it with the group. And then the last thing that your May 4th meeting was Officer Miller was talking about a survey and the results of a survey. I would like to see that survey. I was unaware of it, so and I could talk with you, Chief, tomorrow on that. If there's I'd like to see what was asked and what the results were, because this is the first time I heard about a survey on this. So I'm just going to quickly summarize. As retired law enforcement officer, it would be hypocritical if I wasn't supporting this. Because when I was the captain of the North District, I fought for my district to be the test area. And it's still going to be, if they ever do test body cameras. So clearly law enforcement, we love cameras. It makes our job a lot easier. And like you say, the prosecutors love it too, because it's no longer one person's word against another. There it is. You can see it. As a resident, it will depend on how the policy is written. I'm a very big, as you guys know, big advocate for privacy. I think homes are our last area that we should control what gets out of being shown in our home. So that's going to be kind of deciding how the policy is written. But again, I think the Shorewood, I don't know if they have their policies. I guess they do, because they've been doing it a year and a half. That would be a really good one to look at, I think, because he was very much in line with my thinking of what you want to protect. As a board member, of course, we're looking at what do the citizens want, and then the cost benefit of any program or any expenditures. That's our job. Make sure it's what we need and where it sits on the priority list. So I thank you for all the work that you did on this. I would make the one suggestion I would make, again, as a board member, I would have liked this to probably, I think we could have done a better job advertising this. I looked at the last two newsletters, it wasn't there. I couldn't find it on the website. And even the agenda just says open forum, but doesn't have the topic on it. So I think we could have probably done a little bit better job. I don't know if more people would have shown or not, but that would be my only suggestion in the future. Thank you.
Anybody else want to contribute in the open forum?
I'll just speak real quick. Michael Polakowski, 3047 Valley Parkway. I'm here, I'm a village trustee, and I think Jay did a really good job of explaining a lot of things. I thank the chief for getting back with some of those technical questions about the server and the timing and the redaction. A lot of my questions dealt with, how is it going to impact the officers? Their amount of time would require more man hours. Would that involve eventually having to hire more people? It sounds like a lot of it's very automated, and how the software would interact with policy. So my question, it sounds like these body cameras are going to be the same way when they pull in the dock, that they're going to automatically be loaded up to the server. Sounds like it's incredibly automated, which was one of my concerns. Just in terms of timing and how much time it would take away from officers doing their primary job, which is like their public safety, and this is just harassment. And that's all I really have to say. I'm interested to read the policy, see how it interacts with privacy, et cetera, and just how the community reacts to it.
Thank you. Anybody else in the audience want to make a comment or a question? I got two things I would add. One, I invited EMS and fire because I want us to co-market more. I also think sometimes when you do separate meetings on a topic, you don't get great attendance. So I'd love to and recommend we think about putting this body worn camera information together, maybe have a couple different tables at the national night out because people are already there for something. So it would be good to have people engaged. They can check out volunteer fire department opportunities. They can check out what the EMS is up to, and they could check out details on body worn camera, get some specifics. I think that might work better to engage a few people. I was interested in what Officer Miller had to say too, so I think it'd be good to take a look at that report. The percentages were very high, but that stuck out from that May 4th meeting too.
Just so you are aware, that wasn't something where he was directed to do it. That was a project for a training that he took on, command school. And so he took that on. So I'll have to ask him for that information. Hopefully he still has it. He used it to take the class that he needed to pass the class.
And I would assume on the server piece, the way technology changes and updates. I used to have a friend who owned a business called Digital Security and Alarm, and they kept all of that stuff, and it just took up space after space. All the technology just keeps getting better too. So that's probably another reason not to invest big there. Any other comments or questions on the open forum and body worn cameras?
I guess my only question would be when, and this could be directed to anyone with knowledge, when you look at some of these other larger communities, or if you say Dane County, sheriff and others that serve those smaller communities, what is the main reason? If it's budget, is it technology, is it policy, so what is it? And whatever it is, we want to avoid that, right? If it's just a budgetary issue based on scalability, I think that's very different than what's the right thing to do for a community at a certain size with a budget that can cover. There's administration and a lot of other things that go along with larger communities. So I guess that's where I'm kind of waffling a little bit on those that have done it, couldn't keep it going, and have put it on pause or revisiting, versus those that have implemented it, are maintaining and evolving based on trends and issues and concerns. But really trying to figure out where those pain points are, and not trying to retrace steps, but learn from some of those best practices.
So so Jay brings up a good point. The two biggest municipalities, which is Madison PD, who they were thinking about doing that in the North District. Apparently they've decided against it. When they put on a program, you're talking millions of dollars because they have lots of officers.
Right.
Dane County is the same way. They've taken on little municipalities, but again, it's the same sheriff's department. Those are the only two agencies. When you talk about Middleton, Fitchburg, Monona, Sun Prairie, all of those agencies have body cams. We're the only agency that isn't moving toward body cams. So Mount Horeb just passed theirs. Blue Mound is getting theirs. Belleville took them a couple years, but they got theirs. So the municipalities are all getting body worn cameras, and I think there's several reasons for that. One of them is, with all due respect, we're not Madison. So when I call for backup, I don't have 50 people show up. When I call for backup, it's 20 minutes. It could be a long time. So we rely on that body camera footage. I don't have 7 sets of eyes that are watching a scenario, able to document on a report, all of those things. Small town policing, which is all I know, and I have 25 years experience on, you need all the help you can get. And body cams hold us accountable, hold people accountable, keeps people honest, keeps officers honest, builds training opportunities, but it captures it. There is no ifs, ands about it. Body cams will always especially in a small town, will always save your butt before it's going to hurt you if you did things right, because it's right there. It's black and white. There's no way to get around it. Of course, there's topics like the body camera might not work. It might fall off. It might, whatever, they didn't update it or they didn't turn it on. But those are why policies exist. I am very much in favor of making sure that our public is respected and their privacy is maintained. So policies, I mean, we could literally call Shorewood Hills, their policy is actually online. We could copy it and just change the name and keep it that simple policy. Policies update with laws, as Jay noted last time. So even from 1 month to the next, there could be a case decision that changes it. That's why I partnered with Lexipol, because they will change it for us. They will let us know, hey, this is coming down the pipeline. The other thing is that I think it's inevitable that someday, it's already being talked about in the legislation. Someday this is probably just going to be part of our lives. Officers are just going to have body cams. It's going to be a necessary, just like all the other programs that happen to us all the time when we're in government. They give us more and give us less to do it with. So I think whether we do this now, later, whenever, I want to prepare the server to be able to handle body cams when you're ready for body cams. But I'm sensitive to the issues that are being brought. And if you two weren't here, maybe we wouldn't hear those topics. So I'm glad you're here because we need to discuss them. I think I agree with Jay. I think we could have done a little better job with the forum, getting it out, more information out. I've spoken to a lot of people, invited them to come here at multiple events, and I'm not getting the response. But I, in keeping with our timeline, we said we could use July, and I think Randy said it at one of our meetings. Although we want this to happen, we don't need to rush it to happen. We don't have the body cam footage now. We need to do it right, so it's a one-time decision. So when we give a recommendation to the board, that's the only real thing that I really want out of this committee is when we give a recommendation to the board, that's what we stick with. I don't want it back here. We have other things we need to work on. And so I think that we have to have a really good, clean product and get it to the board. And it's good that we're hearing different ideas because I'm not hearing it out in the community. So I guess the next step would be to decide, do we stay on our timeline and do a second forum in July before we do something in August with our final?
Yeah, two things. One, I think Doug's idea of doing an informational thing at National Night Out, I wouldn't do anything before that. Get a feel from what you get, feedback at that night. At least the community will be more educated then, and they'll do it. And the other thing that the chief from Shorewood was mentioning that a new statute or new action was coming from the state on body worn cameras. Do you know anything about that? Because that was new to me.
So he's on the legislative committee,
Okay.
and he serves on that committee. So he gets everything right hot off the press. So
Okay.
this is being talked about,
Okay.
and so what the hopes are is that if like any program, that there'll be some money available, even through, so this, the Bureau of Justice Assistant, they have provided funding for body cams in the past, for agencies and things like that. So I think he's seen some movement there. And so he's the representative from our Chiefs Association on that committee. So that's why I invited him, because he has the most connection with what's happening in the state with legislation. So,
Well, I asked those questions because at least in my mind, I need to start, and I said this early on when we started this process, is at least this is a public safety committee. And at least I'm trying to look at this as a budget is a separate conversation. I'm trying to stick to the facts on what we need in terms of what it takes to put forth the body cam program. And that's based on, again, best practices, evolving trends, right? And really the facts. and you bring those all together based on that and hopefully alignment with the community on what those facts are. And that brings forth then, at least for me, a recommendation of a yay or nay. What is not in my wheelhouse is the creativity of how to budget this and how to fit this into an annual budget cycle and where those funds come from. To me, that's a very different topic. It's something that needs to be considered in the final board recommendation and vote. But again, this is a public safety committee, and I'm just trying to delineate where I need to focus my mind and not be clouded by some of the other administrative burdens and the scalability things that may happen in some of our communities.
Yeah, I completely understand, because I think the Public Safety Committee's role is to look at this not from the pocketbook as more as policy. Me being the representative on this committee and also a department head, I have to look at it both ways. So I think that's where the connection is. And so I think Jay brought it up perfectly. He's a citizen, former cop, and also on the village board. So I think vetting it from all angles is beneficial. So
Absolutely.
I appreciate what you just said, because I think sometimes we lose focus of what the committee really has to do by taking on things that maybe aren't our responsibility so much. But I think we need to keep them in mind, because
Absolutely, yeah.
you know, we may get this and be a no, and all these months of work may end up not happening.
No,
So
I totally agree. I say that not in that they shouldn't have taken place here, the discussion isn't, but really where at the end of the day, you know, we need to focus our attention as we make a recommendation. It's not on, in my opinion, just strictly on budget and the cost benefit analysis there.
And I guess I agree with that. I've listened to the budget like numerous times, and I think you've reduced this down almost a ridiculous level where it shouldn't even be part of the discussion. We're $5,000 over 5 years. And I'm a finance manager, trustee, and a former cop. That's off the table. Let's stay with philosophy of why we should do this.
and I think that's why it was important to bring the people from different disciplines, and Jay identified it himself. He's not a tech, right? So that's why, I mean, this guy works for Land Tech. That's all he does, and he works in our system. I think that's an interesting point of the 911 calls, to see how many, 911 centers, see how many hours we spent. I think I would just like to know for information purposes. So that I think we can deal with that. The thing is that this tech deals with when we're using footage of recording, we're already using our squad cars. So if we go into a house, the only difference that happens is that we don't have video of inside, but we're already audio recording. It's just being recorded in the squad car. So he knows already what we are using, because he deals with it. So when we have issues, so that's why I don't know anything about technology. So that's his job.
And
And
I
he,
feel very comfortable with what
Yeah.
I want to stay on. Is this something we should do? It is. Let's get it done. The last year and a half, anyone who has sat and watched any amount of television, I mean, my wife makes me stop watching because my blood pressure goes up. Just the turmoil and issues and things going on isn't the world we lived in 5 years ago, 10 years ago. And so I view this as an opportunity for us to do the right thing. Protect the village, protect the department. It's nothing but protection. It's just the right thing to do. And we have analyzed policy. We need good policy. We need to discuss this and address this. Everyone needs to be comfortable with how we're going to do it. But let's just say focus on whether we should do it or shouldn't do it. Let's just get this done so that we know one way or the other which we do. And I think the event coming up is that's a great opportunity where we're going to have more people. There's going to be more people. This is a great time to open up that discussion. And if we need to have a table set up where we're going to sit and talk.
Put us in front of the food. Travis.
For National Night Out, I know we in past years have worked with, you guys been at setting some up, or how is this gonna, answer
Yep.
that, or how's that work?
I know
In the past, it's been hard to try to do a lot of it, and contacting other municipalities
Yep.
Because it isn't just a couple weeks, let's get together and talk what we're gonna do.
Yep.
It's a couple months.
Yeah, I know, the officer that's in charge of it is actually Ben. He's in charge of that section of our program. So I will talk to him tonight again, and make sure that he's on board and knows what I know he's already reached out to some things, but who's your contact at the fire department?
Contact me.
Okay. All right.
I know we got a couple people on committee.
So last year's was canceled because of COVID.
Yeah.
The year before, we had great weather and a really good turnout. It was- So it'd be good
I
to,
remember we went through a lot, and then I think one of the previous years we got volunteer park.
Yep.
There, so, but again, it's, and I think Dade County was there and all that stuff, but again, it's, you gotta start planning.
completely agree.
Okay. I'll connect you two. Okay.
Can I just make one more comment?
Please.
Just on what Randy, I hear what you're saying about the dollar and Kevin, that should be separate. But it's important for you when you recommend something that you know, at least have some idea of what that cost is gonna be. For example, if this were to require, let's say, for the redaction part, you'd have to hire 2 more police assistants. Would that change your mind at all? Because now you're talking about a major cost. You could probably hire another officer for that. So I still think it's important for committees to at least look at that. I don't think you need to figure out how it's gonna get paid for. But I think the total cost of a program is significant to the support of it. You know, that's just my feeling on it, because I'm not sure what, if the price tag was 100,000, would you still be, you know, in favor of it? What if it was 150,000? Of course, it's not. So I think the dollar part of it is still important for committees to at least acknowledge.
Yeah, I think, no, to that point, Jay, I think line of sight and understanding is, I don't know what that threshold would be. And I'm not, on a personal level, I'm not sure I even have a threshold, because that shouldn't, in my opinion, you know, it's like
Yeah.
wastewater treatment. I have no idea what it costs to make our water safe. I don't know. So I can't put a dollar figure on that, you know, or, you know, liability for the village based on some lawsuit. I don't know that's, but from a safety perspective and what is the trend and where are we going and what, you know, the facts here, that's, you know, these were my largest weight of my recommendation will be, but the line of sight absolutely is nice to have for a frame of reference, yeah.
And do you know, Jay, if there's 1 or 2 key themes that committee, the citizens committee, why they were opposed or didn't endorse it?
Well, you
quite
know,
as much?
Madison's a little different
Yeah.
at times. In the past, it's been really the privacy issue, you know, and then it has, they originally, the big thing was body cameras keep the use of force down from officers, because now there's evidence to show that the officers are using use of force. There are current studies that are showing that not necessarily been the case, that has not been a deterrent. And then no doubt in Madison, you have a group that wants to reduce the police budget. It's very hard to try to reduce a police budget and then require a program that's gonna cost $1.5 million.
Yeah.
So I think there's been
Couple times.
a little conflict in that, but most of the past, I can't speak to the current, the new group that's looking at this. In the past, it's been clearly privacy and dollars.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
And I think that's what's been identified here as making sure we're covering those 2
Yeah.
things: privacy, dollars, ongoing costs. And I think that's the responsible thing to do, I mean, with any of these programs. I think for me, I feel my role is the liaison between all of that. And so I think we just kind of take that into consideration, and then we render our decision or your decision. And I make a case, and then we make a decision. But I guess for me, and having 3 board members here, is it is painstaking to work on something for such a long time. and then get it bounced back and forth. It's better. And I think some of the board members would agree that aren't here, it's just make a decision, we move it forward, and it's a yay or nay vote, and that's it.
Well, it's good to get the input in the committee forum too, so it's packaged better when it gets to the board. All right, thank you. Next topic, future items of discussion.
I haven't added anything on. I know that it was brought to our attention of adding a four-way stop sign at Valley and Brewery. I think it's a very good idea. People race down that area. I sent out an email to the staff to get their input. You know, obviously all of them have been here much longer than me. All of them have responded in one way or another and have said, yeah, that's a spot. I even sent it to Jerry. Jerry likes to weigh in on issues with signs because it's out of his, it's out of his budget when he goes out and puts up these signs and those kind of things. He said that initially it was actually, they didn't do it because of the fire department. They wanted to be able to go down that street, but that really isn't an issue anymore. And that's so that was the history of it. And I said, well, okay. Well, if it's not an issue anymore, I really think we ought to consider it. There's been some near bad crashes there. I mean, people are cautious because if they live there, they know that it's kind of a blind area, but getting people to stop might help curb that a little bit. So,
We used to have one stoplight in town too, so
yeah,
so I get it, and I think it's
we have a
great
lot.
topic for public safety to consider that. And I think that was a wise public.
Yeah, I think that would be worth putting on the agenda, and then,
There's a lot of kids over there too.
There, just so we're all on the same page. So yes, Brewery and Valley is bad, but there's spots all over town. There's a lot of speeding, a lot of traffic violations.
Church and Brewery. I find that intersection it's just like I
Yeah.
can't see. I'm like literally.
I think it's honestly,
and
it's the
forward.
design of it.
Yeah, it's just.
If you actually created stop signs, it would bottleneck it even more.
Yeah.
Because in the morning, school traffic is bad enough to get in there. Yeah, it's just a bad
It's just a
design.
mess.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It'd be nice to not have the municipal building there because then you also not only have a lot of traffic, but then you have city business or village business there. So people are trying to, pull off. It's just not a good spot.
that'd be a good thing at National Night Out too, is pedestrians and bicyclists and other people using our roads need some reminders on how to act and to be aware.
And we're making a lot of traffic stops. In all honesty, usually you get the complaints of you guys are just stopping everybody. I've not once received that complaint. People are like, stop them all. They're just speeding. Everybody's speeding. I get the other complaint. It's just crazy, weird to me because we've increased just since Chief Tom, like, I don't know, 200% in traffic stops and enforcement. And I still have not received any complaints of traffic enforcement. They're like, no, people are speeding there, so being that it's a bedroom community, I think people really want their kids safe. They want to be able to go to the park and have their kids on bikes. So that's why people are more tolerable of that traffic stop stuff. But like, for instance, today I had a guy going up the wrong way on toward Main Street under the influence of heroin at 11 o'clock in the morning, and how many kids were in that area? I don't know. A lot. So it's happening. So, I mean, there's a lot of traffic. So I think, we can isolate this place. I think people would respond to having a good conversation about Brewery and Valley.
Michael?
Question, when you guys are doing the traffic stops, are you citing people, like writing a ticket, or are you mostly writing a warning?
It just depends on the scenario. So there's thresholds. If you were to just write citations, then you might actually create an environment where people don't want to come to town. And then all of a sudden it hurts business. And so you have to have a pretty good balance of how you enforce it. So most officers have a threshold. Okay, if they go this fast, that, that's a citation. Depends on the area, depends on records. So a lot of times, we run someone and they've already had a couple speeding tickets within the year. And obviously they're slow learners, so they're getting a ticket. So, I mean, it just, what I guess really the philosophy that I hold and that our department holds, because that's the way I feel, is compliance. Really, enforcement's about compliance. If you can get people to comply, then you're doing a good job. So if you have repeat offenders, then obviously you're not doing a good job complying. The hard part to get compliance here is that our traffic on Main Street is thousands and thousands of cars. And so you might get someone drive through town that won't come through town again for a month. And so there's just a lot of traffic. There's just a lot of traffic here. So, yeah. So we have violations and tickets and.
When should we do our next meeting? We got July 6th, I think would be our normal schedule.
Do you guys want to skip July? I think most people are, we've done that. I think we did that
When is
last year.
National Night Out?
And just have,
August 3rd is National Night Out. Go ahead, Travis.
Could I just ask you about the committee itself as a whole, just as curiosity for the volunteer fire department? Do you want us like here at meetings, like what's your intentions with this?
Yeah.
with this
So-
category? Like,
so when I took over, as the chief, I recognized that you guys weren't invited to these meetings. Because I looked back at previous practice. The Public Safety Committee was not very active. It didn't meet hardly at all. It was almost as not active as not the Public Safety, but the Police Commission. So Police Commission is the hire, fire, demote, promote, that agency. We don't meet unless we're hiring somebody or, God forbid, demoting someone or something like that. So we haven't met since they hired me, so they don't meet. Public safety deals with public safety, but it had kind of turned into a police safety. And that's wasn't my vision on it. So I went to the Chief Dale and I said, hey, I'd like to invite you to these meetings. Lori was the chair at that time. And then I went to Erica, who had just gotten appointed as director, and said, look, this is a public safety committee, not police committee. And so we want you at these. We invite you to every one of them. And just about every one of them, we get a report from the fire department.
Come up, it'd be
No,
helpful to you.
and
Something's
it's
getting
excellent.
going, we gotta take it from the board, then
Yep.
start here.
Yep.
And just so we know, and then I can start writing stuff down. I mean, I do remember with the flooding and talking about that a little bit. I attended the first couple meetings with that, and then you guys kind of got like a little something set aside on that. So I don't know what
Yep.
ended up with that.
COVID ended up with that. So, but yeah, I'm going to be talking to Bill here soon, because now that things are opening up, we need to get that committee back working.
Right.
So what we're looking at is the emergency operation plan and have the police, fire, EMS work together on this plan. Because if we get called out to God forbid, a worst case scenario, derailment. I mean, what are we going to do? I mean, you're talking a mass problem
And I
here.
think that's what too, it was.
It's just a lot.
It all worked out. I mean, everybody worked
Yep.
together and it was great, but in a sense, it wasn't us and it needs to get.
Yep.
Cleaned up and worked out and learned from our mistakes.
So part of the emergency operation plan would be to build it, create it, and then exercise it. So we would have, a couple exercises every year, tabletop, and maybe even a functional one where we, close off a street and say, hey, we just had something made, and then do an exercise. Police, public safety committee could come and view it and see what we're doing, those kind of things. So that's what I envision in the long run of it. So that little subcommittee is going to have to, get together, and we should probably have 2 members just in case, let's say the fire chief can't come, somebody else can come and those kind of things. But yeah, that'll get started again. I've already kind of put it in Bill's ear. He's emergency director, emergency management for the village. So he's got to be part of it to coordinate efforts. So yeah.
And each meeting we do from now on, Travis will have the EMS director, fire, and it doesn't have to be the director or the chief. It could be whoever.
Yeah,
We want to report out. We want to continue to communicate and work together.
Yeah. We've had you guys on the agenda since I started here. Sometimes people don't make it, but we would encourage anybody to come. Just get a report out. It helps us out with decisions too.
One thing we might want to do then as a committee, knowing that it's kind of three prongs here, you know, that we want to talk about and this committee's representing, is making sure that the public knows that this committee is an intake for any of those three, not just traffic and dogs, you know?
Yeah, the only difference, and I've heard this now a couple times, I think Jay mentioned it, that because I'm an employee of the village, I'm required to have this committee and to work public safety, but there's no authority really over the fire and EMS. So you guys would be solely volunteer to come here. So we'd hate to make it where people can come and vet complaints here, because we get complaints here on, you know, hey, why are we, you know, so we got to be real careful that people don't start showing up and saying that fire department's been doing this and that, you know, so it would actually hurt our relationship, I think, if we started doing that. But I think, you know, saying, hey, we're dealing with topics that are public safety, you know, not police, public safety, which includes everybody.
I
So,
think it's important to get a report. I like having reports.
Yeah.
yeah,
Just
for
so
sure.
if there's something we can help with, or something we
Mhm.
can started, let's go. I've been on this committee for 6 years now. There was a stretch where we didn't hardly meet once a year.
Yeah.
I almost resigned. I was gonna resign just because.
Yeah.
What's the point? Now,
Yeah, when I was hired, Jay, well, that was the first thing Jay said. He goes, I really would like that public safety committee to be active. So, I mean, we have enough to discuss. Matter of fact, when it first started, if you remember, we had like 20 things that hadn't been addressed. And so the things that were like a year old. So we're all caught up now. So, you know, so it's a good thing. And Candace is gonna solve everything for us, so.
that's what I heard.
I do have a quick question though.
Yeah.
I've never been to a national night out, so what's that like consist of?
Basically, fire, EMS, police, our services.
Yeah, essentially it's an open house. It's public relations, essentially. I mean, trucks are always on display. At the fire station, last year, the year before, we had hot dogs and just it went a lot better. We usually, I think the last time we had over 1,000 people.
Yeah.
We usually see maybe a couple hundred. I don't know what happened, what changed everybody's mind, but it was pretty crazy. And
I think-
it's awesome.
And
It's just a big PR builder. A lot of it's too for kids. I mean,
when the weather's good, the kids love it.
yeah.
Other communities do it the same night. It's a big
It's-
deal.
it's all-
Milton will do it the same night. Mason will do it the same night.
So we'll get basically our community and maybe people from just outside of the community who come to ours, and then everybody kind of coordinates and does it in their own communities, but all over the nation. So it's kind of a big deal. So, yeah.
I mean, one thing that I would really like to do is not just public safety committee, but also as a village board, is find ways to engage people, that they're not just come to a meeting whenever they're upset about something.
Yeah.
That bothers me. I want them to be engaged in our community, find other ways to let them know what's going on and how to get active.
And I would agree with that, because we only meet once a month. So some of these problems that we hear about, they fester, and then they become these huge problems when we could have dealt with it 3 weeks ago and it wasn't that big a deal. And now it's become a massive problem, and attitudes and all that stuff.
I
So,
think we should discuss, are we gonna make a presence?
yeah,
Gonna make ourselves available to discuss.
I think we should definitely have a table.
Yeah, I think.
I
we
mean,
should
we
have
will be
table
there as a
and we
police
should-
department.
I think we should have a table. We should all attend. And then I agree, we don't need to have a July meeting. We've had a long one last month, a public hearing this month. And I think we should do it maybe the week after to talk about feedback we got.
Well, that's good.
So
I
we
definitely
could,
want to make a presence. That's our opportunity to say, okay, 1,000 people showed up. We had an audience of 1,000.
yep, yeah, and we can recycle some of the paper, have a couple handouts, and they'll also get a chance to ask the officers, what do they think? And I think what they had to say a month ago, sealed the deal for me for sure.
So the only direction, I think that all looks good. And so we can plan on, I will get Ben connected to you guys so we can start organizing this, because it does take some time to get it together. But I just want to make sure that you guys understand. So we have what's called the capital improvement worksheets that are due sooner than any of these meetings. My plan is to request funds for the body cam program Even if it gets denied here, we would be behind the 8 ball if I don't request them now, and because they need to be approved. And so I think it's coming down the line, but that's the funding part of it that requires, we don't have that funding. So they're going to have to find it in the budget. And so I need to make sure they understand that this is coming. So it's no different than our radios are 14 years old. There's locations in town that, radios are defective. So I'm getting them all updated, but we're going to need to start looking at radios as a board and those kind of things. So again, that's something that comes up in capital improvement. And so I just want you to be aware. So when you see it, that it's not that I'm circumventing this committee, but I got to look at it from the budgetary side. So, I'm going to put it out there that we want this, even though we haven't formally agreed on it. Unless you guys think I should wait, and then.
I
I
don't,
don't know.
no, I think we've been on the same page through our discussions.
Okay.
I think
So as long as I have the consensus of the group, I will include it in my capital improvement budget for next year.
And so then, just so we're clear, we will have a table, National Night Out,
Mhm.
and then we will have information.
Yep.
So then can we promote that? Like, listen, moms and dads of Cross Plains, what's going on,
Mhm.
like those are
Yep.
two places where like the word gets out quickly.
Like I put this all out there
Okay.
every time.
So
on
is that
those
something
things.
that we can
Yep.
do, like National Night Out, August 3rd, and also like
Yep.
Public Safety Committee is gonna be, or police officer, like we'll be here to discuss this if you have questions or concerns, blah, 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 got it.
And I think that as we're sitting there, you can say, hey, our biggest topic is body worn cameras. What do you think? You
Yeah.
know, and as long as we are all on the same page of the information, that the same information, I think that will garner some feedback. And then I think Doug's right. Maybe 2 weeks after that National Night Out, we'll just plan for a meeting and we'll just discuss that. The only issue is that this brewery, Valley Street, will have to wait till that August meeting. And it's been an issue for years, so we'll just, we're aware of it. We've stopped people there. We monitor it just like all the other spots. So we'll just have it on the August agenda. That's okay.
I think that's fine. And do you want to do the 10th or the 17th?
We can decide it right now if you guys want.
And would we aim to make a motion for a vote related to this as a formal recommendation coming out of this?
I was bringing it into.
It's not on the agenda, so I don't think
We can't,
you
no.
can't really.
No,
I think he's talking about the 10th or the 17th.
yeah,
Oh, we just would just
that
decide
August.
that that's our next meeting, and I would just let people know. I don't think
Yeah.
we need to have a formal.
no, as far as us making a final motion for a recommendation to the village board as it
Oh.
relates to this though.
I think that
do we
August
aim for
should,
that August
August
date?
should be the day
Yeah.
where
So do I.
that's it. By then, my goal is, okay, we'll have, the policy's already done.
Right.
So the policy gets shipped out to you guys along with, my plan for this committee is to prepare a formal report of everything we've done. So it'll be a report that each board member will get with all the information that we have. So I don't know how many pages it'll be, but it'll have costs, quotes from the 15 chiefs that responded about body cams, the agencies. It'll have very detailed information that you will have prior to that meeting. I will make sure it comes here first for your approval. That report, I would hope that would get approved here to be moved on to full board, and then we would give it to them with a final recommendation, which would then come in the form of a memo from me.
And I think that the timing's spot on with what
Yeah.
Jay asked
I
of
agree.
us. So I think
Yeah.
that should definitely be an agenda item, and we should be able to
So
get the feedback at National Night Out. and
For
take it
each of
up.
us to feel confident that we've heard.
enough of stuff, yeah.
Yeah.
So August, did you say it's August 3rd?
It's August 3rd.
So it's on a Tuesday?
Yep.
Why did I think it was on a weekend? Okay, so it actually works out perfectly. So it's either,
Usually it is. There's an exception for 1 year that it was at Deer Park, because that's what meant like a Day County other SWAT team.
Yeah.
Guess I would,
17, 24,
I would throw out the 17th for
Okay.
myself.
I would too.
About 2 weeks later.
Yeah, and this before school, it's not getting too tight to school, I think. 17th is good for me. Candace, look good. Well-
Gosh, it just ended 3 days ago.
Lori, 17th, okay?
Yeah.
So let's set it for the 17th at 7.
Okay.
And I would,
We're all gonna converge together. at National Night
Yep.
Out.
we're all strongly encouraged to attend National Night Out. And I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll move.
I got a motion,
I'll
I got a
second that.
second, I got a second from Calvin, motion from Randy, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, the same. Passes unanimously, thank you.
Good meeting. Yes.
Thank you, chief.
Where did the chairs go?
Chairs go back,
Stacking again.
stack on that chair. You start some chairs, I'll get the table.